Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to the Face and the Card Making Space. And a card using all oldie but goodie favorites. Although the one set, I'm honestly not sure if I've used it before. This card is for this week's Color Throwdown Challenge. If you are unfamiliar or new here, it is a weekly challenge that a group of us do that is just a different color combo every week. It's just for fun. Anyone can play along. I will link to the challenge in my blog post, which is linked directly below the video. And this one, even though they're colors I use a lot, I don't know, the challenge just kind of threw me for a loop, I think, because I'm in Halloween mode. I almost went Halloween with it, which is doable, but reasons. Anyway, I pulled out this Honeybee Stamps Lovely Layers Wildflowers wafer die set, which looks weird. For those that are aware, I have a soft spot for the Honeybee Lovely Layers sets. There are now tons upon tons. I have no idea even how many there are. I do have a playlist of all the videos I've done using them. That'll be in the end screen at the end of the video if you want to check it out. Especially the florals. I use a lot of them. I'm not sure if I've used this one. I've had it for a long time and love it. I don't know if I've used it, but pulled that out. I pulled out the Honeybee Lovely Layers Bugs, which I've used, and sentiment set that I've used many, many times, and just did some simple ink blending on color cardstock. Kind of kept it clean and simple for the most part, but I still managed to squeeze in a little bit of baker's twine, a couple types of splatter, and some shimmery vellum. So super fun. So like always, I will have links to everything I used in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links, end up placing an order, I get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It's what helps pay the bills, keeps the channel going, etc. And let's get into making this card. As per usual, I did all my die cutting before I started filming, and I used mostly Altenew cardstock for this. So for this first, this little wildflower poppy, I'm using blush cardstock, and I die cut it multiple times. And then I'm going to use some Altenew fresh dye inks just to add a little bit of shading. Still going to keep it simple. Didn't want to vie away from the color combo too much, but adding a little bit of ink shading gives a little extra depth. So I'm using on these pieces just Rouge fresh dye ink, and this time working with my little Altenew shader brushes. Any little blending brushes are going to work. And I'd stuck the pieces to one of my grip mats. So that's holding them in place, and then I'm adding shading, which right now looks like, as I tend to say, a hot mess. Because some of these areas, like especially on the biggest pieces, that whole center area, you're not going to see it because the next layer gets adhered on that, etc. So I don't worry about how that looks. I can slap the color on in the middle and then blend it out, softly. And as always, the ink will dry back and soften. And on these ones especially, it's going to be just nice and soft. So the little tiny pieces are for the flower centers. Those I die cut from paper bag cardstock, and then added a little bit of paper bag ink and a bit of espresso ink using the teeny tiny blender brushes on those. And then to assemble, simple. Largest to smallest. And then you add the two little pieces, which I use my reverse tweezers. As always, reverse tweezers for the win. To pick up the little pieces and adhere it into place. And then you've got a little poppy flower. Love it. So then for this one, I used Buttercream cardstock. And then for the white ones, that's just Neenah 80-pound cardstock. And I started with Buttercream ink, just a very pale yellow, and added just a smidge to the base of the white flowers. And again, this will dry back and soften, but it'll give them that little extra something. And then went deeper with the yellow on the floral that I cut from the Buttercream cardstock. Because if you're using specifically with Altenew, but this applies to pretty much any brand of cardstock, if you're using the same color ink as the same color cardstock, it'll look great at first when the ink is still wet, but don't be surprised if all that blending and shading disappears, because once the ink dries, there's not going to be much there. Now, this can somewhat vary, again, depending on the brand of ink, brand of cardstock, etc. If you're stamping the ink, a lot of times it'll still show up. It'll kind of be like a tone on tone, almost like a watermark effect. But like I've been saying, when it comes to blending or coloring or stamping on color cardstock, depending on the look you're going for, it helps to just test it out on a scrap of paper first. You know, do your blend, do your stamping, your coloring, especially because I've shown that before too. Like if you're using like alcohol markers, things like that, do what you want to do onto a scrap, set it aside, let it fully dry, and then go look at it again, because it's going to look different. Because like, yeah, when you're using transparent mediums like dye inks, alcohol markers, etc., they look much more intense. Like right now, as I'm blending on this green cardstock, this is Parrot cardstock. So all this blending looks much more intense, much darker while the ink is wet. But as it dries, it softens, it soaks in, it softens, it dries back, and it's much softer, which is what I was going for. But I mentioned that because, yeah, it can look completely different. You might think like you've achieved the depth you wanted, and then after it dries, it's like, where did all of that go? So basically, more often than not, you need to go much darker than you would think. And that's why I say just use a scrap, kind of test it out, and then let it dry, because it does look completely different on color cardstock. I love blending and coloring on color cardstock because a big chunk of the work's taken out because you've already got the color. You know, there's a base already there. But that, say, on white cardstock, it's also extra fun because you can really get, layer up the colors and everything. So there's a million ways you can do this. That's the beauty of it. So after I had assembled my little flowers, you just adhere them to the leafy bases because the, floral portion is there. So this is all idiot proof. And that's another reason I've talked about this, why I love the Lovely Layers sets, because they are. Even the ones that look super difficult, you basically just go largest to smallest, and there's all the deboss details. There are layering guides and everything too available that you can download, and it's another one of those things where you do it once and it's like, oh, this is so simple. So these came together super, super easily. And then I arranged my little floral cluster just like so, kind of got it, into almost like a little bouquet. And then once I was happy with kind of how I have it, and they're all just sitting right now, like kind of on my card base, I took a piece of press and seal. Same press and seal that I use most of the time for like sealing up my jars of paste, things like that. But another nice use of press and seal, and I've shown in past videos, is when you're happy with an arrangement you like, depending on how you want to adhere it, using press and seal is a great little trick. So I've got my little floral arrangement. I don't want any of this to move. So I took that little piece of press and seal and I'm going to press it onto all these die cuts, and it's going to cling to all of them and hold them in place. So I wanted to tie a little bit of baker's twine around it to make it look like it was, a little hand-tied bouquet. So I've got the press and seal. It's holding everything so nothing's going to move. And then I can take some baker's twine and I'm going to thread that around a couple of the little die cut stems, and then just tie that into a little bow, super, super easy. And then, the press and seal is holding everything. So I'm not sitting here fiddling and fighting with all of these die cuts. So get the little bow, baker's twine bow in place. Once I'm happy with how that looks, I can trim off the excess. And then I can just flip this over and start adding my adhesive. And I can even peel up, some of the little pieces here to kind of add adhesive in between. And then so that things are a little more secure. And then add all my liquid glue. And I'm basically going to use the press and seal as a handle. So love it. Love it. And when I'm done, this piece of press and seal, I just stick it back on the box of it. Because I'll just reuse it either for something like this, or I'll use it to seal up the next, jar of paste, whatever. And I do have a link to press and seal because, like I've always said, this is very easy to find for those of us in North America. You can find it at most grocery stores, etc. But for those international, it is not easy to come by, and Simon Says Stamp does sell this. They stock in their store specifically because it's hard for those in other parts of the world to come across. So yeah, they sell it. So I stuck my piece back to I just press it to the box. It'll just cling there till the next time I go to use it. And then after I got my little bouquet adhered, I stuck my card base and this extra flower into my splat box because splatter, of course. So the first bit is one of my go-to favorites, the Picket Fence Studios liquid paper splatter watercolor liquid white snowflake. Just adds a bit of shimmer. So I stuck that onto a palette and I used my little fan brush to add some splatter. And then I pulled out the black soot distress paint and I'm going to add a bit of black splatter as well. Just cause. You can always skip it. I know splatter's not for everyone. I like it. So added a bit of that, and then as always, especially with the black soot, but distress paint or acrylic paint in general dries permanently. So wash out the brush, wipe off everything before you go on to anything else. And then the sentiment is from just an oldie but goodie favorite. This is the Big Time Kindness stamp set. I've used this one a million times. I love it. So I stamped the sentiment onto a scrap of the same smooth white cardstock. I don't think you guys can see it at all. There was I had a couple fuzzies or something stuck to the stamp, so it didn't stamp clearly. It was bugging me. Paper has two sides. Flipped it over, restamped it. We're good to go. So after I stamped it with black ink, I used the coordinating wafer die to die cut it, as well as I die cut another scrap with the wafer die. And I'm just going to adhere those together just to give the sentiment a little bit of extra dimension. And I'm going to adhere this right on top of the bouquet as well. So got those adhered together with the Craft Tacky glue. And then I'm going to adhere this into place also with just Craft Tacky glue. This is why I only did 2 layers for the sentiment because, generally my rule of thumb is 3 layers minimum. But I'm adhering this on top of all those layers of die cuts, so it didn't need extra dimension. There's already a bunch of dimension with this card. And then I'm going to put the card base back into my Misty, and I'm going to stamp one of the companion sentiments from that same Big Time Kindness stamp set. So I got that lined up. I'm going to stamp it with the black ink. Just made sure to place it because that's why I had that extra die cut little poppy, so I can stick that on the inside of the card as well. So got that stamped into place, and then I can adhere my little poppy die cut, and then I'll flip over the card base and trim off the excess with my scissors. So got the glue on there, press that down, flip it over, trim off that little piece hanging over the edge. And then I couldn't resist adding this enormous dragonfly. I love this die set, so big. This is from the Lovely Layers Bugs die set. And I die cut the dragonfly body from a scrap of black cardstock. The wings I die cut from Tonic pearled silver vellum, which is beautiful. I've used it in other videos as well. It looks weird online. The packaging looks very silver. It's not. As I show here, it's just kind of traditional looking vellum, but then it's got this pearly sheen to it, and perfect for bug wings, especially these ones, because the debossing from the die just naturally makes that vellum curl up. Love. So it's massive amounts of dimension, but it's vellum. It's not gonna impede anything if you want to stick it in an envelope, etc. So I adhered the wings to the body, adhered the dragonfly to that bouquet. Look at him. Love him. And that finished off the card. So, like I mentioned in the intro, I will have links to all of the things in the description box below the video. You just got to expand it, and depending on what you're looking for, scroll down. Got links to the blog post, links to the supplies, links to my social media, etc. It's all below. So, as always, thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos. Thumbs upping and commenting genuinely helps a ton. I very much appreciate it. And I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in supporting me over on Patreon, the link to that is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye.